Pop out chat. Here we go. Okay, right. Lots happened today in sport today. The biggest news is the MotoGP at Silverstone being cancelled a couple of hours ago. The way that Silverstone and the race organisers and the MotoGP have handled the whole thing, absolutely diabolical. Um, Absolute shambles. They knew the weather was going to be poor this weekend, so they pushed forward the start time for MotoGP, but not for Moto2 and Moto3, which they kept later in the day. They could have easily got all three races, either shortened the race distance by a few laps and got all three races done before the weather turned, or they could have raced them tomorrow, and they chose not to have a backup plan to have races on the Monday. So MotoGP doesn't come out looking good from this. Thankfully, the shambles was only on BT Sport, so not many people will be watching it anyway. But it was badly handled. Fans were paying a lot of money. A lot of fans didn't buy tickets for the covered grandstands because they believed a couple of hours in the rain, getting in and out. The weather deteriorated, and then families were going to the main grandstands to try and get shelter, and they're being charged £80 or being requested to pay £80 to get a grandstand seat, which is disgusting. Silverstone does have a poor reputation when the weather does turn like this, of having really not coping well with wet conditions, problems of access, problems with parking, problems with facilities. They have spent a lot of money in recent years in upgrading some of the facilities. They built that stupid hangar straight pit lane thing, the new pit lane for the F1. What a waste of money. They haven't upgraded most of the stands. They've resurfaced the track. There were concerns about the tarmac surface today, the asphalt surface today. And what's ironic is the British touring cars at Knock Hill did go ahead and has actually finished on time with a lot of safety cars today, using the same track surface. The same company that resurfaced Silverstone also resurfaced Knock Hill, and Knock Hill was also having issues with standing water and drainage. I cannot believe the commentators were saying that was a good track surface to drive on. It was very entertaining at Knock Hill today. How can Knock Hill, with more races to get through and a more dangerous track, I would think, because of how narrow it is, manage to get a race weekend on, yet MotoGP can't in very similar conditions. And it was actually colder at Knock Hill as well. So there's going to be questions there about the fact that none of the riders, only 3 or 4 riders volunteered, said they were still happy to race, but not one of them was allowed to have a sighting lap. I would say if you've got riders who feel confident in racing and actually complete a race, let them do a sighting lap. They feel more confident in the conditions. If they then say it's not safe, fair enough. Not a single rider did a sighting lap. So there's a lot of negativity surrounding MotoGP and how the whole situation was handled. There's been several controversies this season with the championship organisers, the championship itself, and some of the circuits they go to. The fact they didn't have a contingency plan is pretty shocking. On another note, Watford are joint top of the Premier League. They've continued their unbeaten winning start to the season. They're joint on points with Liverpool with 9. And I'm not surprised actually by Watford's start to the season. I do think that the top 4, top 6, the kind of the big clubs, there is actually a few cracks showing in the wealthier and bigger clubs at the top of the table. I do think there's going to be a new name in the European places this season. Obviously, Burnley was the new name last season. There's going to be another club that's going to take that leap from mid-table pack to top end. And the European spaces, I think it could be Watford, it could be Bournemouth. I think Burnley, depending on how they adapt to this qualifying campaign for the Europa League, which I would use as a learning curve, they could do it again. So there's some interesting stuff happening at the top of the Premier League at the moment. Very interesting things. Obviously, the British Touring Car stay at Knockhill. It's probably my least favourite circuit on the British Touring Car calendar. Rockingham is not really a decent circuit either. They're my two least favourite circuits. Um, Knockhill stay, it was highly entertaining, but that track is just not safe for modern motorsport. It's not wide enough. It can't cope with the wet. Uh, the, the, the way it's laid out, it's just a tiny track. It's a tiny track. You need two sighting laps before you can actually go round. It's a tiny. I think they need to replace Knockhill with another motor racing circuit in Scotland. Yes, it was entertaining today, but half the races were dominated by the safety car. There was a red flag in one of the support races after a massive shunt that involved multiple cars. Thankfully, all drivers were okay, but that track is too narrow. It's like Alton Park. You can't pass and the drive it in the wet. It's just chaos. Some of the tracks that the British touring cars go to need seriously upgrading, and the problem is with what's happened with Donington and the fast that it's been Silverstone today. A lot of track owners are very cautious about investing large sums of cash into their circuits. Donington's never fully recovered from the shambles that was the rebuild. For all those MotoGP fans who were saying, "Oh, why can't the MotoGP next season be at Donington?" It's because it hasn't got the facilities anymore. The Dunlop Bridge is gone, so the iconic bits have gone. They've half done a rebuild. It's not the same circuit anymore. It wouldn't be up to Grand Prix standard. They were going to host the F1 there. That fell through. And since, Silverstone is not fit for purpose either. I think the two most famous Brands Hatch is possibly the only place you could have MotoGP in this country. Cadwell Park, yes, is a pure bikers circuit, but it's not a MotoGP standard circuit. You just haven't got the facilities, and the corporate wouldn't enjoy that. I think Brands Hatch is possibly the only circuit you could replace Silverstone with. Donington doesn't have. It's completely different to what it was when it last hosted the MotoGP. The rebuild has been nothing short of scandalous at Donington. So there's that. Now, you could say that the way the organisers were fully aware of the conditions today at Silverstone. They were fully aware of the conditions days leading up to it. No contingency planning, and that makes Silverstone, MotoGP, and Dorna look really, really amateur hour. For the most part, 90% of fans not happy. They want to have a full refund. They won't get it because obviously this weekend you've had qualifying and practice. What I find really funny is that, as I say, no rider was willing to take a sight a lap when it was starting to dry up just before the race was called off. Not one rider. If they were wanting to do it, the organisers wouldn't let them do it, which I think is insane. They it is what it is. It's done now. But the shambles that was the MotoGP today makes the sport look exceptionally amateur. When a few hours up the road in Scotland, in very probably worse conditions at Knockhill, a race weekend goes ahead. Yeah, cars are different to motorcycles. I would accept that, but a race weekend goes ahead. So it just makes a mockery of motorsport, really, that they couldn't have any contingency plans and couldn't postpone until tomorrow. But at the same time, you got to look at the rebuild that's gone on at Silverstone, and it constantly gets negative feedback from racegoers. A lot of people have been very critical of Silverstone since they built the new. I'm fine, thank you. Since they built the new new grandstand, new pit lane, they've been very critical of the pricing and of the fact that there's a lot of these grandstands that they could have allowed people to shelter in. They've already paid a lot of money to get in, and they were still trying to charge them money. There have been a lot of complaints about the food and drink available there, the amenities, and the access. And Silverstone always seems to struggle when there's a bit of rain. It just doesn't rain very well. It doesn't hold up well. and the new tarmac surface is people have been critical of that. And in a couple of weeks' time, the touring cars go there. Um, with autumn coming, the weather's going to be more and more like this. So it is what it is. Is Brands Hatch not available? Well, Brands Hatch hosts the British Superbikes. It also, oh, thanks, Mike, for deleting that annoying Pratt. It does host the British Superbikes, the British Touring Cars, twice a year. The opening and ending of the British Touring Car season takes place there. British Superbikes takes place there. There are a lot of events that take place at Brands Hatch. It's one of the more popular tracks we've got. I mean, we could do Snetterton. That's one of the faster tracks we've got. Cadwell Park is purely a motorcycle track, really, but it isn't up to the standard of what MotoGP would expect. Donington, after the rebuild or the attempted rebuild, they still haven't finished the full. I mean, they've got new owners now. And they have finally got some decent ownership. But the people who bought Donington and were planning to rebuild Donington ran out of money and were probably involved with a bit of fraud because a lot of the money that they had disappeared, and they left it half built. And the touring cars were going to pull out, and the superbikes were going to pull out, and Donington was signed up for the F1 contract, and that was taken away and given back to Silverstone, which has ended up being a shambles anyway. But MotoGP and F1 is not the same as what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's not. None of the riders today were willing to do a cycle lap, or none of the teams were allowing them to. Not Kill. I've just watched all the touring cars on TV. They were in worse condition, weather-wise, than Silverstone. They managed to put a full race weekend on, and yeah, there was a lot of crashes and lots of cars ending up in the gravel trap. But here's the thing: in wet conditions, you go slower. And so, for those saying that these riders don't want to crash at 300k an hour or 200 mile an hour, they won't be going 200 mile an hour flat out. Silverstone is not a motorcycle friendly circuit. Not gonna lie, it doesn't drain well. The resurface is being people have been highly critical of the resurfacing that has been done at Silverstone and Knockhill. And yeah, Knockhill put on a very good show today. I'm not a fan of Knockhill circuit. I think it's just too short. And to be fair, there is no real the gravel traps. Just there, the way it's laid out, it's not a great circuit. And that's all I'm going to say on that. In the dry, you cannot pass there except at the hairpin, and the hairpin is a crap corner. In the wet, it's a lottery. It really is an absolute farce in the wet. It's too narrow. It makes Alton Park look wide, and Alton Park is notoriously hard to pass. All you got to do is just watch. Obviously, the ITV coverage is finished now, but they managed to get all the races done and finished 10 minutes early, and that's with safety cars and red flags. And Knockhill organisers did a lot better than Silverstone. The worry I have is that the touring cars go to Silverstone. Now, yes, they're using the national circuit, but they still have to use some sections that have been resurfaced with this shoddy tarmac. And I just have my concerns about it. But as I say, motorsport fans in this country and from most of Europe are regularly critical of Silverstone and Donington for that matter. So on Twitter, all those people saying have the MotoGP back at Donington, they don't realise how much of a mess Donington is actually in. The old Dunlop Bridge is gone. The track is not the same layout as what it was. A lot of the stands have gone. They haven't rebuilt a lot of the stands. They haven't managed to do all the upgrades because the previous owners ran out of money. It's been a decade of financial issues with Donington. So the facilities aren't up to, again, Grand Prix standard for either F1 or MotoGP. Which leaves Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch for me is the only circuit that could easily host, because you've got the GP circuit, which is the only circuit I think that could host be it either F1 or MotoGP. It's the only circuit that could do it. It's still close to London, so it's not far from London. It's in Kent. European fans can just get the ferry or the Eurostar over, which isn't too bad. As I say, it's not actually a million miles from Gatwick, not a million miles from Heathrow, technically, because it's in the southeast. But all the London airports are very, very close. So the international fan, it's decent road links to the M20, M2, and M25, and M23 aren't that far away. I think it's the only one with the infrastructure to do it. It just needs more grandstands built, but Brands Hatch is possibly the only circuit that could do it. Possibly Snetterton. I don't think some of the others just aren't up to having that type of motorsport from what the sponsorship and the FIA require. Um, but no, the way they've done Silverstone is a shambles. There have been complaints about Silverstone for decades with the poor infrastructure around. I mean, it is in a bloody field. It's the same with Donington. They're both not actually that close to a major population centre within 10 miles. But it is what it is. I mean, as a motorsport fan, I was following on Twitter whilst watching the British touring cars, and it was a shambles. Following Twitter, the fans rightly were not kept to the loop correctly. They had 4 track inspections. It was clear from the first one that the weather was going to continue for several hours like that. The temperature was only about 10 degrees up there. It's a poor circuit. The Bracknell Bees, the squad's been fully announced. The first pre-season game is next Saturday. I'm going to a game Sunday. And then there's 2 more pre-season games the following weekend. I'll be at one of them as well. So there's a few games I'll be going to. The rink's looking a bit better. They've done a lot of refurbing work at the ice rink. So we've now got a working scoreboard for the first time in 4 years. Get in there. We've got a new logo. They've rebranded a little bit. They've done a few rink improvements, which were long overdue. And I think they got enough feedback from, and they saw how Basingstoke's going. They gave enough feedback saying that fans who were getting a bit disgruntled with the state of the rink and with what's happening at Basingstoke, I think they wanted to avoid any further deterioration of our rink. And our rink had just minor issues. Basingstoke's rink is a death trap, but our rink had just a few minor issues, a little, bit of TLC. The rink owners have done that. The teams are rebranded, so I'll be getting my jerseys soon. Yeah. They've got a good squad this year, and with the Elite League losing out on the Edinburgh Capitals going out the Elite League, I do think there are a few teams that could take that step up to the top level of British ice hockey. I think it's part of the reason why the rink is being upgraded somewhat. I do think, there's 1 or 2 teams that could take that step up. The Elite League have had a meeting with Hull this off season. Hull have been deferred for a year at minimum. Hull have had a team in the Elite League before in the Stingrays. The Hull Pirates, okay, they've been going now a few seasons. They got better each season. It's an automatic rivalry with Sheffield. It's a debatable point. But Bracknell would have an automatic rivalry with Guildford, so we'll have to see what happens over the next couple of years with the Elite League. But it's looking good for the coming season. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the team, the squad they put together, the roster they got together is a solid, scary looking roster. A lot of good players. Kept some good leadership core there as well, and some of the local lads who've come through the youth system, which is always good to see. Some of our youth players have now gone up. 1 or 2 of our players have been snapped up by Elite League teams in the past. Another one's gone. So we're developing good British talent, and with the success that the national side have had earlier this year, it's boding well for the future. And of course, in British ice hockey, we've had Liam Kirk get drafted in the NHL, and he went later than expected in the NHL draft. And it amazes me how the draft system works. For me, it's still a little bit confusing. I'm not 100% certain on the NHL draft. There's a few things that are an alien concept to Europeans. The fact that I am a big NHL fan, I don't put too much stock in the draft because some of these players won't play at the top level for a couple of seasons. Some won't play for a lot longer than that. In the NHL level, and some will be drafted and stay in Europe for a season or 2, especially if they're from the Russian league or the Finnish league. But it's good, positive news that Liam Kirk has gone over to Canada to play. That he has been drafted. He was meant to go in a higher draft round, but he went in the 7th, so he's a steal. And we'll have to see how he develops as a player in North America. He will probably get a few games in the NHL as an emergency call up from the AHL, the UCI AHL. But either way, as long as he plays a professional game in North America, he's done something that British players haven't done before. The Newcastle game, I haven't actually seen the score, so if you bear with me, I'm just going to get the score up. Let's have a look. I mean, I haven't really been following football today. I think Newcastle have issues. I think they need to seriously invest better in the transfer market. And of course, Mike Ashley being the owner of the club, that doesn't help. If I'm going to be honest, so it's an issue that Newcastle have. Is the investment in the transfer market and in the squad. I'm not sure how long Rafa Benitez, is going to stay as your manager. I'm not sure, with the proposed sale that was mentioned last season that I did a lot of videos on with Amanda Staveley and how that collapsed. I have concerns about Newcastle, and I don't know how long Rafa Benitez is going to stay as your manager, to be honest. I haven't seen any of the footage, so I'm going to wait until Match the Day 2's on, possibly, because I'm not a Sky or BT customer. So, unfortunately, because it's all on subscription TV, if you don't have subscription TV, you can't watch it. They make it as difficult as possible to, see your teams play. From what I've seen so far in the Premier League this season, and from what I've read, Man City are going to miss De Bruyne. I think Chelsea are adapting to Sarri's style, and it's going to be a long-term thing. And I hope Abramovich has patience with the long-term plan. But looking at Abramovich's past history, he's very likely to wield the knife. Watford being joint top at this stage of the season, if you had a bet on that, you've just made a fair bit of cash. Liverpool had a good start. I've had a good start of the season. So Liverpool, I would put down as the closest challenges Man City have this season. I would definitely say that. And I'm also surprised with West Ham's start, depending, with under Pellegrini, they've put a lot of money, into the transfer market this summer. They've spent a lot of money. Pellegrini, proven manager at elite level. I'm surprised they're bottom of the Premier League. I really am. I'm really surprised with how they've started this season. I know when you have a big influx of players and you have a new manager in who's got a different coaching style, it can take time to gel that squad together and to get the message across. But West Ham, really, honestly, their next game has to be a win. A draw just won't do it. It has to be a win. I understand the need for patience, but West Ham cannot afford to get relegated. Not with that stadium. I don't think Newcastle can afford to get relegated either. Wolves will be difficult to beat at home, but they haven't got a win yet. So for all these people hyping them up, saying they're going to be the new Man City or they're going to play the same style as Wenger did when he first came in, are not living in the real world. Half their signings are on loan. The goalkeeper they got on a free. There are some suspicions about the ownership group also having links to the agent that signed a lot of these players. Wolves, I think, are the strongest of the three promoted sides. Of that, I have no doubt. But they haven't got a win yet. And you've got to get that first win. Fulham are the only promoted side to get a win out of the three. And they played a Burnley side that looks a little low on confidence. Not going to lie. Burnley obviously having that defeat in midweek. First European campaign. I know it's only the qualifying stages, but that will, be a learning curve for Sean Dyche and his team. I think I'm not following football as much as I used to. I'm also surprised we've already had 2 sackings in English football and and one party on company in Scottish football, and we're not even out of August yet. We've still got the last week of August to complete, and we've already had 3 managerial casualties. That is stupid. Frank de Boer lasted an extra 2 games, so we were all having managerial changes early in the season, and that's what I find surprising is the clubs that are actually terminating managers' contracts are not the clubs that can actually afford to pay compensation. They are the clubs that have really limited budgets. We'll have to see how Wolves do. I think what I saw last season and what I managed to read up on was the League Cup performance against Man City did say to me that they would give it a good fist in the Premier League. They would. And they've done it again to Man City. They seem to have tactically worked out Man City. They're one of the few sides in the last 12 months to have tactically worked out Man City. They did a number. On the same token, Guardiola's got to work out why there are certain teams that he and his team, since he's been in charge, have struggled against. Liverpool and Wolves are 2 of the teams that they'll play a lot this season because there's going to be League Cup and FA Cup, and they're very likely to, they seem to not do as well. Now, also, Man City are missing Kevin De Bruyne for up to 3 months, and that could, and knee injuries are notoriously difficult to judge how quickly a player is recovering from. So we'll have to see what kind of, how Man City adapt without De Bruyne, especially when the Champions League group stages start. We'll have to see what kind of effect that has on their chances for repeating what they did last year. No, I didn't. I'm not paying money to those 2 poor excuses of human beings. I mean, KSI was caught wanking whilst doing a football video, and Logan Paul obviously filmed a dead guy hanging from a tree, and they're still making money out of YouTube. That's pretty sick. But I'm keeping my views on that because, to be honest, I don't want to get banned from YouTube for speaking out against the vile things they do. It made a mockery of boxing as a sport. They did it in the Manchester Arena, which has had its own story of to tell, and I'm not even sure what the viewership figures were. I haven't actually seen it that much on Twitter. I think there are other things trending on social media that are actually getting more hits than KSI with Logan Paul. To be honest, I do hope both of them gave each other brain damage, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, we're all suffering, Mike. With the small accounts. I've had 1 copyright violation on my first live stream because there was background music playing. So that was frustrating. No, it was frustrating. It was a kick in the teeth. They are seen by hundreds of millions of young, impressionable teenagers and kids. Same with PewDiePie. And they're still making money. And people are going, oh, but no, it's months ago, get over it. It's like, okay, if you go to a country where socially that is a very, you don't talk about that kind of subject, it's very socially hush hush when it comes to suicide and self harm and depression. And they do have a high suicide rate in Japan. And Twitch, yeah, that's just giving 2 fingers to YouTube. Twitch is giving 2 fingers to YouTube there. A lot of YouTubers have been, trying out with Twitch, but Twitch is mostly for gaming. So, and most gaming YouTubers seem to get away with copyright violations. So there's a grey area there. Twitch and YouTube don't like each other very much as companies. But YouTube needs to seriously figure out what it's doing because I know, Mike, you had issues when you got remonetized or were eligible for remonetization and you were waiting for your confirmation to say that you can make money again, which is actually costing you earnings. And I've gone on Social Blade. Now, Social Blade is a very useful tool if you want to see how, if you are a creator, how you are doing. Now, my second channel is literally 1 video a month or 1 video a week. It's not the main channel. I know it's not going to be the main money maker. I was looking on Social Blade, and apparently my channel is ranked as a grade C for influence, and a grade C for for monthly viewership. It's ranked as a healthy average channel. Obviously, I've made a few improvements. I've got a whiteboard which is down here at the moment. I'm not getting the whiteboard out. This light is a bit dim. It's like great. It's grey, overcast, and peeing with rain outside. So the light coming in, natural light, isn't great. And because of the light bulbs we're using in my house, they're not the brightest either. So the lighting isn't great. So you can't really see what's on the whiteboard that well. It's a fast going up and down. Um, I will be doing a second live stream later tonight because I've got food in the oven that's about to come out, so I've got to eat my dinner in a little bit. So I will do a short little second live stream. But yeah, I think YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and so many of these social media companies are shooting themselves in the foot because it's the way they handle the controversy when someone or a group of people use the platform they have and it's a dangerous platform to have sometimes. But yeah, it's been a hard slog the last 6 months. It has been a hard slog for the last 6 months. The channel growth at the beginning of the summer was really good, and because it was the summer, you generally get less videos in summer. You get less video views in summer. A lot of people go on holiday in the northern hemisphere. A lot of people go outdoors, and the weather was great the last 2 months until recently. So a lot of people were out and about, and I was one of those people. I actually went down to Brighton Pride for the day and managed to give myself heat stroke. It's great, but it was too hot to sit down and film and record videos. It was over 40 degrees inside my house because of the insulation we have. It was exceptionally hot, exceptionally humid, and it takes it out of you. So I needed a break for a month just to get out. But no, the KSI pool fight. What a mockery of a sport that already has enough bad headlines as it is. And controversy. It was completely a mockery, and they wanted to charge us for it. I'm like, what? You want to charge us for that crap? I've got a few mates who have done charity boxing matches and stuff like that. You have to go through a lot of training for a long period of time, but absolute farce. It's a mockery of the sport that used to interest people. Boxing is a sport that will do anything to get money these days. A lot of the fighters aren't the same caliber that they were 20 years ago in my eyes. Um, it it really shames, Oh God, I know Michael Buffer was that was another. He doesn't need the money. It was all done. It's just a commercial money grab. There was nothing about that was serious. It wasn't even a charity. It was just a money maker. They were there for a paycheck. Um, and you know what's funny? Most mainstream people couldn't give a toss about these people. I wonder how many kids actually did harass their parents to pay money to watch that because it was subscription only. You had to pay for it, even if you had YouTube Premium, you still had to pay. So I want to actually have a look to see how much money was actually made um, by YouTube out of that. I don't think it'll be that much. Um, I don't know. I mean, if Twitch has actually got a higher viewing number by illegally streaming it, that says something about the battle between Twitch and YouTube. And it's a non-sports question, really, but it's a valid one. It is a valid question. It, it, it's something that I prefer. I was hoping not to talk about, to be honest, but now it's been brought up. I actually went down the pub. I did a live stream last night. Did a couple of videos, and I went out and I saw some mates. That's what I did. I don't have time to watch pathetic, self-obsessed people who are bad role models. They are terribly bad role models for young people. I have nothing wrong. Look, I'm a YouTuber, so I hope I can do some good by being a positive influence, and we can have a debate about sport. Um, oh yeah, the draw as well. The whole thing was just designed to fleece hardworking people out of money. And boxing is a sport itself that has come under a lot of controversy for fixed bouts, fixed matches. So it will be interesting because if people have been deliberately defrauded from that, because betting is on chance and on odds, and you know, oh yeah, no, they both said they both want a rematch. It's just designed to make as much money as possible. It's more of a fast than Mayweather McGregor, and McGregor actually is a mixed martial artist, and Mayweather is a boxer, so they actually have trained, as athletes for years. These guys, it's a sham. It's not a sham. Um, but it is what it is. I mean, I was hoping on this live stream not to have to talk about it, but unfortunately, you guys keep asking the question. But the fact that two sports YouTubers are on this live stream, you and me, Mike. I mean, and we're talking about something that we have no interest in is actually quite sad, really. They made money out of it. What they have done is they've abused the platform they were given, and the Paul brothers themselves are both, discussing individuals, but the amount of money, the amount of money they've made out of other people's misery is just enough. 11 games on bit. Yes, Rangers have had a good start to the season, both in cup competitions and in the league. Crazy game today against Kilmarnock. I think that's the kind of entertainment Scottish football needs, is a crazy game like that. Celtic start to the season hasn't been great, so Hearts have got a nice little cushion at the top of the table. They've got 9 points. But here's the thing: this is a learning curve for Gerrard. He's got to get his players round and say, right, why have we not, got wins when we should have? And that's coaching. That's a learning curve that he's going to have to assess. Is they've got draws, they've dropped points from winning positions, and you don't want that to become a long-term trend. Celtic Rangers, that is going to be a very heated match, because Brendan Rodgers is now under pressure for the first time as Celtic manager. He's under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of negative publicity, especially with the Boyata contract and their exit from the Champions League before they've even got to the group stage. That game is going to be really heated, and I don't think it's going to be a nice game. I think there's going to be a lot of controversy around that game. I think there's going to be a few heated challenges. And the irony of Boyata scoring the winner for Celtic today when his contract, what's going on with it? But Brendan Rodgers is under pressure. Gerrard, his start of the season, there is no pressure on Gerrard. There'll be an expectation for Rangers to get something out of this game, but I wouldn't be surprised at a draw. I wouldn't be surprised at it being a high scoring game, because Rangers have managed to drop points from winning positions. And looking at the defending today, and just looking on the Twitter feed at how they were behind, they got ahead, and then Kilmarnock pegged them back. They've got to tighten up that defence. And Celtic haven't looked solid defensively themselves. There's a reason why Hearts are unbeaten and at the top of the table and looking pretty comfortable right now, with a nice little comfortable cushion. I think, yes, Rangers have gone unbeaten so far this season. I think Celtic, they may be running out of steam. They haven't really acted in the transfer window. I think, what Scottish football really needs is the league to be really tight, contested, and several clubs going for it. If Celtic are going to win every season, that's boring. I think they need to expand the size of the league so that you only play each other twice rather than 4 times, because to have an Old Firm derby a minimum of 4 times a season, and that's before the League Cup and FA and the Scottish FA Cup, that ruins the occasion, of the rivalry, because it's just all the time. I think Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Rangers, St Johnstone and Kilmarnock have severely hacked into the gap that Celtic had over them. I think Brendan Rodgers is finally under pressure. I think the league needs, 18 or 20, it needs to be a bigger league. Maybe even 16 teams where you just play each other twice a season. And you can still have no fixture congestion there. You need to combine the top 2 tiers in Scottish football and the bottom 2 tiers in professional football in Scotland to really make it healthy. Because at the end of the day, the UEFA coefficient, and I keep harking back to the UEFA coefficient, it's not in Scotland's favour. It really isn't. The reason why you've got so many teams in Europa League qualifying this season is because Celtic regularly got to the group stage in the Champions League. Now they haven't. It's going to be less money coming into Scottish football. Celtic are going to feel the hit on their finances. Rangers haven't, got financial stability off the field still. There's still concerns about the money at Rangers and some of the issues with their issues. Aberdeen are financially stable but don't have a lot. So, yeah, the UEFA coefficient needs looking at because it does skew things. I don't know enough about the UEFA coefficient to make a full in-depth assessment. I'm assuming, Mike would know more about the UEFA coefficient and how the maths is worked out. But because Celtic's failure to get into Europe, Champions League at least, that is going to have a knock-on effect. And they've changed the qualifying for the Champions League this year as well from 3 rounds to 4. So you have to start your season even earlier, so you get less time off as a player. I know the Scottish League isn't, the highest quality league, but when you've got less time off as a player, and you've got the World Cup and then the Euros every 2 years, and you've got to take an extra round of qualifying to get to the group stage of either European tournament at club football, that's a concern. So UEFA need to have a sit down with some of the smaller leagues in Europe and try and work out, how that works. The Rangers' financial problems do go back to when they were actually, cooking the books, and then obviously Setanta collapsing. Now I can do a video on the collapse of Setanta TV and the effects it had on Scottish football, because Gretna went out of business, Dunfermline almost went bust, Livingston almost went bust, Rangers pretty much all that is the same as the name. Both Dundee clubs have struggled. Inverness had a little wobble because of Setanta's collapse. A lot of Scottish clubs are really, up the crappers right now financially. I think with Stephen Gerrard's appointment, it's created some optimism. The thing is, Rangers fans, a minority of them, and a very large minority, are not on the same planet as everyone else. There's, unfortunately, in Scottish football, the issue of sectarianism in the fan base. Hibs, Hearts, Celtic, Rangers. There's a lot of rather vile chants and crowd disorder because of, be it Catholic or Protestant, and the troubles in Northern Ireland. It spills over. Also, there's an issue with gangs in Scotland having links to football clubs. Rangers itself, itself does have still uncertainty off the field. But if Gerrard can keep this unbeaten run, or this good run, we'll say good run because at some point he's got to lose some games, and the players have got to get used to defeat under him, and he's got to learn how to bounce back from a defeat. Losing points from winning positions is something they've got to sort out. The Celtic game will be a test. They threw a win away against Aberdeen, a key rival in the league as well, for that second spot, or even for the title itself. Kilmarnock are sniffing around the European places in Europe, in Scottish football as well. So the teams around Rangers that Rangers need to beat or be equal to have taken points off Rangers when they shouldn't have really done so. And you look at the table, and Hearts have had a really good start, and they're a club that also could use a good run and a solid season. They've had their own money problems as well since Setanta's collapse. So I could do a video on that, and that is a real lot of research that needs to be done, and I could do it tomorrow, I suppose, because I've got a day off work. But the Scottish football, it comes up a lot on Livestream because the amount of subscribers I've got from Scotland. The state of the Scottish national side is another concern. The state of the league structure. But yeah, making the teams in the league, making the league bigger will be beneficial for all. I think Aberdeen, they got Rangers were unfortunate to screw that, and Aberdeen got lucky, but Rangers should have won that game, dropped 2 points. Aberdeen have regularly been above Rangers in the league now for the last few seasons. They're now the second team in Scotland for where they are, and they are the third biggest club in Scotland. So historically and for performances, they're the third most successful club in Scottish football. So I think Aberdeen are probably the most likely to get to Celtic. But if Hearts can continue this good run as well and get some confidence, they're going to be hard to beat. Hibs, under Neil Lennon, are being stubborn as well. So it's an interesting season ahead. But I'm more than happy to do a video on the collapse of Setanta and the effect on Scottish football. Even 10 years later, there is still an ongoing issue with club finances in Scottish football. There just isn't the money there. What players get sold and bought for in Scotland is a lot less than in a championship in League One, even. And yeah, I think Rangers. It's all about confidence. I think with the way the whole Graham Murty situation was handled, and Pedro Cartagena before him, I think the whole behind the scenes management of Rangers is a bit wobbly. I haven't actually seen an Old Firm match in years because I don't have subscription TV in my house because I'm not actually the homeowner, so I don't pay a lot of the bills here. So it's up to my family who I live with about what we have. I've offered to get Sky, BT in the past, and now the more I know about how subscription TV and subscription sports TV is killing sport, I'm less likely to want to get it. So I haven't seen an Old Firm match in a long time. But it doesn't help that the Scottish League doesn't really advertise itself outside of Scotland. Match of the day for the English League is shown all over the country, all over the UK, but the Scottish highlights only shown in Scotland. I know a lot of Celtic, Rangers, and Aberdeen fans here, and even Inverness fans down here in England, in South East. There's a lot of Scottish football fans, Scots living in the South East, and I know some Aberdeen, Rangers, Celtic, Inverness. There's a lot of them down here. I do think that the Scottish FA and the league could advertise itself better and say, look, we do have a product up here. We do have a competitive league. I'm not sure in the south of England as much. I think possibly Liverpool and in Manchester and in the cities that do have a link with Scotland. But honestly, I'm not sure. I don't go to pubs that really show Sky Sports and BT Sport. Really, I mean, my mate's pub in the next town up from me doesn't have Sky anymore to save on bills. My local pubs are Wetherspoons, so they don't have Sky either. So I think the closer you get to Scotland, I think it's more up. Partly because some of the English players, like Paul Gascoigne, for example, who did actually play in Scotland and from Newcastle. I think it's more of a Northern England thing, not in the south. There are Scottish people living down here, and large numbers of them, but I'm not sure how many of them are actually actively, really, even now, still interested in Scottish football. What I also have found on the channel, and I'm looking at my viewership figures, the sports that actually get the most views is not football. cricket, rugby league, and ice hockey have normally got more views on average per video than football on the channel, and that says to me that people are slowly turning off football. My World Cup reviews, I watched almost all. I think I only missed 5 or 6 games in the World Cup this summer. They weren't getting the views that the Rugby League World Cup were getting. The Rugby League World Cup videos got more views than the Football World Cup. So that's telling me that a lot of people are starting to switch off football. Um, but that could just be, the time of day that the games were on. Obviously, a lot of people watching down. Tonga did not win the Rugby League World Cup. They got to a semi-final, which they lost against England. And I have all the videos on my channel. I did wake up silly o'clock in the morning at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to watch a lot of the games, and I really put a lot of effort into that Rugby League World Cup. And I tell you, it really exhausted me last year doing that, but it was great fun. They should have shown more games free to air. But it was the agreement with the broadcaster from Australia and New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, that allowed X amount of games to be shown. But no, the Rugby League World Cup, brilliant tournament. Obviously, could have been better. Every tournament has its controversy, but I watched as many of the games as possible, and they are the most popular videos on the channel. Football World Cup, averaging 50 views a video. Rugby League World Cup, couple of thousand views a video. So something says to me that football was starting to lose fans, and I think football is starting to lose fans, partly because the strangle of subscription TV on the sport in this country. The Elite League and the National League pre-season is starting. So just look on their website is the best advice I can give. My local team is playing its first pre-season game next weekend, and then the weekend after. So I'll be going to see 2 out of 4 games, because travel is a pain in the arse when you've got a motorcycle and you don't really want to travel too far. The weather conditions are a bit naff, not going to lie. And it's a distance to travel to some of these games. So I think Dundee's next game will be at some point in the next week. Best bet is to check on their website. It's the best advice I can honestly give on that. I'm not 100% certain. The Elite League starts in a few weeks as well, so the actual regular league season is coming about, and now obviously the Elite League is going to be on Free Sports. So a British league is going to be on completely a free to air this season in its entirety, which doesn't happen enough. Subscription TV is strangling British sport. Subscription TV was designed to keep ticket prices down. That is the exact opposite of what's happened. But oh yeah, no, I mean hockey fans are completely different to football fans. You will find that if you are new to the sport, they're more than happy to sit down and explain the rules to someone who's never seen the sport before or has a passing knowledge. Football fans are like, how do you not know that? And they're a bit. I think there's a bit more. They're not as pleasant. But it's a sport I like because yes, it is a really hard hitting, violent sport. I'm not gonna lie on that. But I find the fans far more pleasant and far more, willing to, if a new fan is casually, let's go catch a hockey game. I haven't watched one before. They're more willing, I find, to, if there's a new viewer to the sport or someone new to the sport watching for the first time, they're more willing to go up, explain the rules of the game and explain the sport to them. But it's a fun sport to watch. I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to the new season. And I'm looking forward to watching some good quality for the level it is play. I mean, they don't get paid a hell of a lot. Their wages are nowhere near the same as football and rugby league and rugby union. They really do get paid a pittance. I'm not gonna lie, they don't get paid much. So they do play for the love of the game, which is another thing. It means more to them. They're not like these mercenary players who get paid huge contracts and just sit on the bench. These guys really love the sport they play. Um, but yeah, when it comes, yeah, the hockey season's about to start in a few weeks. It's been a long summer. Let's just say that it's been a long summer. I have actually missed going down my local ice rink and watching the lads play. Um, oh yeah, definitely. Um, Football fans, because it's the main sport in this country, they expect you to automatically mm, have an idea of what's going on. And for the most part, yeah, football is actually quite easy to pick up. It's one of the easiest sports to pick up how the game is played. Um, Rugby league and rugby union and ice hockey are a bit harder to pick up because they're different style of game. They're more physical. Um, they're more brutal, I would think. Football is far easier to pick up because most kids do have a kickabout at school. Even if they don't really understand the rules, they'll still have a kickabout and it's easy accessible. Some of the more physical sports are less accessible because you've got to pay for equipment, and not all schools will play rugby league or rugby union. Um, no schools, I think, in this country play ice hockey. It's the local clubs that do it, and the first organised hockey you get through an educational facilities at university in this country. Um, it's classed as a minor sport in this country because it doesn't have the same level of professionalism. Um, but football, most kids, even if they're like really not great, they will still have a kickabout at least once in their school years with a football. It is the most easily accessible sport, but in this country, it is the main sport. Whereas in other countries, it's not. But even in countries where it's not a traditional main sport, kids are still having kickabouts in the street because it's so easy to play, even five-a-side. Uh, I think the problem with football is there is an issue with the proper hardcore fans feeling let down by the sport because the sport is losing touch with the fan base because it keeps going for these big TV deals and these big sponsorship deals and these players are getting paid more and more. And the ironic thing is the Premier League and Sky Sports was set up. This is what we were told to keep ticket prices down. Hasn't happened. Players' wages are, uh, you know, far too high now. Agents' fees unchecked, not transparent. What the agents actually do and you know how much money they can make. Um, the amount of sackings we've seen, 2 managerial sackings in the third week of August. I don't think that's ever happened before. Um, that's how bizarre that sport has become. Whereas if you go to look at ice hockey and rugby league and rugby union, the players are paid a hell of a lot less worldwide on average. Um, they're more likely to have to retire young due to injury. The top level, their careers are generally shorter. Some of the injuries they have are really gut wrenchingly, seriously nasty. They play hurt a lot of the time. I would say no hockey, rugby, or league or union player is ever 100% fully fit. They're always carrying some kind of niggle. Um, those that avoid serious injury and just have a little like just dead leg or bit of a sore shoulder and get arrested week, they're lucky. Um, you'll see a lot of hockey players have lost a lot of their teeth, split lips, scars on the face, broken jaws, shoulder injuries, broken ribs. Rugby players, knees, ankles. Okay, go up yourself. To be fair, this live stream is going to end in a little bit. I might do a second one after me dinner for a little bit, and I'm going to head out because the rain has eased off and it's a bank holiday weekend and pub. And I could use a drink. I could use a stiff drink, to be honest. It's been one of them days. Um, yeah, you know, and I honestly, you know, really do enjoy of going to my local ice rink. It's so much more affordable. It's easily accessible. It's local, um, and I do like having banter with the away fans. I mean, some of them are, you know, a bit difficult, but I do actually like, you know, uh, having banter with the other team's fans. It's actually kind of a laugh when you're up in the club bar and things like that, and you're having that little bit of banter. It's actually kind of funny. It's good fun. I do think, you know, Oh yeah, no, Red Dead Redemption 1. The issue with Red Dead Redemption 1 is if you buy it on Xbox Live or PlayStation Live, the online is a disaster. The actual gameplay on the game is fine. It's the online that is just an internet fart, basically. But the game, the storyline side of the game is fine. It's the online is just shocking. I am looking forward to Red Dead 2. We had this discussion on the previous live stream about esports and how where we would class that in the wider scheme of things. There's a lot of money to be had in esports. Tech companies have made a lot of money in the last decade, when a lot of other companies have struggled during the financial issues that the world economy's faced. Esports, there's a lot of money to be had there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to Red Dead 2 as well. It's looking like a proper tasty game, and it comes out and it's only coming out in a couple of months, so I'm really looking forward to that. Um, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a while since I played GTA 5, so I'm gonna get that out. I think I have a little play tomorrow on GTA 5. I did not watch the F1. I watched the British touring cars today. I find the F1 now. I find that it's getting a bit stale. Some of the rule there needs to be some rule changes to make it more competitive for all the teams. I think we've obviously seen in the last week the issues with Force India. They have lost all their constructors' points because of previous owner having to sell up and they had to be slightly rebranded. There are some drivers in there who are literally there because they've got sponsorship and no talent. Or if they've got talent, it's limited. There are issues with the regulations, and don't get me wrong, I love Spa. Spa is a brilliant track, um, but predictable finish really, very predictable. Um, Whoever got through the first couple laps first and avoided the chaos at the first corner at the source, gonna win. Um, I will say this though, Alonso very lucky, and Leclerc very lucky as well after that massive shunt. Um, the Halo did its job, and a lot of people have been critical of the way the Halo looks and the way does it affect visibility? Does it affect the aerodynamics? It's probably saved Leclerc's life today. That Halo. Um, but I watched the British touring cars, far more entertaining for me. I like saloon car racing more than single seaters. It's just a preference. I haven't really enjoyed watching F1 for quite some time. Sorry to say, it's just a personal thing. I just haven't enjoyed it for quite some time. And since Sky Sports basically strangled the sport with the TV rights, and I do think that is an issue. Shared rights was far better because you had an option of if you want to watch crap or pay for crap. That's my personal view on things. And you have shared rights for sports, it generally is in a healthier state. The fact that you're limited to a limited number of free to air races is a problem. Yes, Sebastian Vettel did win today, but it was all about who, after the safety car or whoever survived the first corner incident and got a good drive out of that. After the safety car, he gets in front, game over. Overtaking has become more difficult because the cars are less stable, following one after another. But don't get me wrong, I love Spa. Spa is one of my favourite racetracks. Always has been. I think they've made it a little less challenging with the excess runoff and taking out some of the gravel traps because you can just go across the tarmac there and cut the corner. 10 years ago, you do that, you've ended up in the gravel trap and you've shredded your under tray. Bring back gravel traps, please. Because then you're forced to stay on the tarmac then. And if you get a move wrong, you're in the gravel trap. But it's not just Red Bull. I think Red Bull have got two teams. They've got Toro Rosso, so chance for a bit of match fixing there. Ferrari, basically Sauber and Haas are linked to them. Mercedes, Force India, and Williams, they all use the Mercedes engine, obviously. I think F1 has lost its appeal for me quite some time ago. I prefer watching the touring cars and the NASCAR because it's wheel to wheel from lap one to the checkered flag at all times. Um, it's my personal opinion. I'm not saying you can't be an F1 fan and you can't enjoy the sport. I just find it less enjoying than I did when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. I Over the last decade or so, I've really switched off. Yeah, I do like NASCAR. I love it. It's wheel to wheel. The fans have more access to the pit lane and more access to the drivers. It is wheel to wheel. I'm not a fan of the lack of normal racetracks. I but I like watching my favorite course is a Pocono because it's only got three corners and they're all different and there's a tunnel. I like watching when they go to Charlotte because that's just real chaos. Daytona and Talladega because they're restrictor plates, so even the cars at the back have a chance of really going for it. It is wheel to wheel. You can get 4 or 5 cars wide. You don't get that in F1. You don't get 5 cars wide going into a corner. You can get 5 cars wide going in NASCAR. A lot of people think you don't have to have a lot of skill to do it. If Juan Pablo Montoya struggled in NASCAR, that says something. You do need a bit of skill. And he was a damn good driver when he was at his peak in F1. Yeah, I like it more, and I'm not even American, but I like it. It's just because it's wheel to wheel, and they go faster than F1 cars. Um, it's actually safer than F1 because they had a fatality, Dale Earnhardt Senior, and they made changes to the cars and safe barriers, and they don't rely on technology in the cars. It is pure mechanical grip and a few adjustments. Um, and the fact you're going at 200 plus mile an hour inches from the car to your right, the car to your left, and the car in front without smashing into each other, that takes skill. It is fun to watch. There are issues with NASCAR. I'm not gonna lie. I am gonna be completely honest. There are some issues with NASCAR, and they are there. We could look into the issues in a video. I could do a video on NASCAR and look into the issues and the criticisms of NASCAR and at the moment. There are some issues there. I'm not going to say every sport's perfect. Absolutely not. Um, Same with touring cars. There are some things in the British touring cars and the world touring cars that I would quite happily change. But because I agree with all the rules and regs. But for the most part, as motorsport goes, I like the AMA Motocross Championship, both the 250s and the 450s. I really do enjoy the motocross. I've got a few mates who are two brothers. They both do motocross, and they're pretty good at it. They race in the British Championship, so they live locally to me, and they go around in the camper van, and their dad's their mechanic, and one's on a 450, one's on a 250. So no, that's pretty cool. So I've been around motocross riders for a long time. I've had a mate who I went to college with who sadly passed away a long time ago in a motocross accident, but so I've been around motorsport for quite some time. I've got a mate who works for McLaren in their road car department, but every time McLaren do well, he gets a bonus, but they haven't done well for a long, long time. But no, I do like NASCAR. I prefer it over F1. I've fallen out of love a little bit with superbikes and MotoGP has just gone down the toilet, especially after today's antics at Silverstone. I've gone off MotoGP. The fact it's solely on subscription TV only now and they don't stream it or allow you to stream it is killing the sport there. But I used to be a big MotoGP and superbikes fan, but they're making it harder and harder to access it. They want to keep the sports relevant, make it easier to access. It's plain and simple. Um, But that's my views on subscription, sport TV. I have very, you know, serious views on. I think it's not right that you have to, already in the UK you have to pay a TV license, so you're already paying for your TV to pay again. Come on, they you would think on subscription TV they would get rid of the adverts. No, they put even more on. So it's all a money grab. It was meant to get the costs down. No, they've gone up. Uh, the athletes and the riders and then the players or whatever sport it is, they are demanding more and more money, way above what I think they should be paid. Like, and I look at my favourite sport, which is ice hockey, and I compare I've got look how much you know uh, some of these athletes are paid, and I look at ice hockey compared to other sports, and they are significantly underpaid for the crap that they go through as athletes physically. Um, and even then, sometimes I find it hard to justify sometimes how much they're paid at the top level in the NHL. Um, and but it's a subjective opinion, and a lot of people are starting to come to that way of thinking that subscription TV is dying a death, and it is. Less and less people, especially in the younger age group, the 18 to 30 age group, are willing to pay for it. Uh, and it's becoming more of a trend that people are switching off of the subscription TV model. And it has been happening for quite some time in the last 10 years. They're less willing to pay um, the prices. Um, and we've already seen two sporting subscription TV services collapse in the last the 20 years in the UK. So there's that issue. And BT Sport is struggling. It's not even making a profit. The only reason it's being propped up is the media company that owns it. It's part of a bigger company, a group of companies, which is already itself under a lot of scrutiny from the British government. Um, so that's BT Sport is really up against the wall. Dinner's not quite ready yet, but I do need to grab a food, grab your roast dinner, um, and then I might come back on it. It all depends on what time the dinner's ready. It should be ready soon. But no, I have to admit, I mean, I always get asked a lot of questions that always go down the same kind of thread. Yeah, I think everyone needs to have a bite to it. I think I've done the live stream. I think at the right time, a bit earlier in the day. Uh, But no, it's we've there's been a lot happening in sport this week, and if anyone needs to go grab some food, I mean, feel free. I mean, I'm gonna, I think, call this live streamer to an end. I think now. Interesting questions. I never thought I'd talk about NASCAR on a live stream. That's the first. That's the first one we've had NASCAR on a live stream. Um, I think, yeah, I think it's time everyone got a bite to eat. I think I need a bite. I'm really hungry. I'm belly's getting a bit hungry, a bit empty there. But no, I like the fact that we've now got this channel where I like the fact that on this channel we have sort of got a good community where every sport can get covered, and I can have oh, Philadelphia cheesecake foot long sub. I'm having roast chicken, so gonna have me roast. I've just had me marching orders for the food. Uh, I might come back on for another live stream and we can discuss a few more things. I mean, I can have a quick look after I've had my dinner, a few of the sports stories, anything else that's broken. The big one today is I have for me is the MotoGP at Silverstone and how that ended in a complete and utter shambles. I've followed it on Twitter. A lot of the people who were there are demanding refunds. They're not going to get a penny out of Silverstone or MotoGP. Um, Hello, Notts County. I'm actually going offline right now, so you've come at the wrong time because I'm about to go offline. But you know what? I will come back on for a half-hour live stream. It gives me a chance to eat. It also gives me a chance to have a look at some of the other major sports stories that have come out in the last hour or so. The MotoGP one, big story, not being very well covered by Sky or the BBC in the UK, because obviously it's on BT Sport, and they're trying to strangle the rights to themselves. And what's come out on Twitter, with people who were actually at Silverstone today, they are rightly furious with how they handled knowing that they had a 3-day weekend. Um, yeah, I will. Let me write that down quickly. If I have a pen, I have a pen. Let me just write that down, mate. Give us 1 second. So is that a capital? I'm assuming that's a capital J. So yeah, we are gonna go. Johansson. That's 91. Yeah, I will add you on Xbox tomorrow morning when I'm on because I've got a day off. So for now, I'm gonna call it at the moment, and I'll be back on hopefully in about half hour's time. So I'll come back on in half hour's time for an hour, and we'll have a carry on discussing some of the issues that you guys want to raise. So literally, I'll come back on, and if you guys have got any questions to ask, I'll have a quick look at some of the other sports stories. I want to avoid talking about football as much as possible because um, I know it's all the stories and they are debating points, but I think I could do that to death. There are some other big stories going on at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Cheers for all the questions so far. Give us half hour. I will be back on. It gives me time to eat, check on a few of the sports stories that are going on, and we can carry on when we leave off. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in a bit.